Okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to those here in the members in the Steve Greenslade room in Usk, and also to members following us online. Welcome, and anybody else that is looking at this meeting. Otherwise, thank you. This is the Democratic Services Committee meeting on Monday, the 9th of October 2023. First of all, Amy, are there any apologies, please?
None that I've received.
We welcome Alistair, who's representing Thomas here this afternoon. Thank you, Alistair.
And Councillor Bond as well.
And Councillor Bond.
He is substituting for Councillor Wright.
I beg your pardon. Sorry, Councillor Bond. Thank you. Good to see you. Any declarations of interest, please? None. Thank you. If there are, we'll deal with them as we go through the meeting. Thank you. Could we have a proposal to accept the minutes of the previous meeting, please? You're all happy to accept those? Thank you very much. And then item 4 is the You Decide project. Well, unfortunately, the person who was going to attend this afternoon is unable to do so because of illness. Is that right, John?
That's right. Yeah, they'll look to attend a meeting in the future. The chair asked for it to go on the agenda. It's a programme that's partly funded by Welsh Government that's looking to allocate grants to community projects. So they were just coming in to give you an update on the work they're doing and opportunities for projects that could access some funding in your area. So we thought it'd be useful to put on the agenda. Yeah. But we'll definitely invite them to the next meeting to give you an update on that. Thank you for that.
So item 4. Changes to the format of minutes. So over to you again, John, please.
Thank you, Chair. You'll have noted at meetings of full council since June that we've changed the format of the minutes for just full council at the moment. The format sort of moves away from a full written summary or a committee officer's interpretation of the minutes and how that could be reflected into the minute document, to put in a link to the online meeting that we live stream onto YouTube, and a shortcut to the start of that agenda item, so that if people want to go back and hear the debate in full, then they can easily access that straight through the minute. And then we're just recording whatever the outcome or actions are that for each individual agenda item. Like I say, that coming in from June, so we've had 3 or 4 council meetings since then. There hasn't been any issues raised with the format of the minutes, and group leaders are in support of that format. So really this report is looking to bring it here to endorse that we sort of look to move that out to all committees, so we standardise it as much as possible going forwards. Scrutiny committee, all committee chairs were emailed about the change in the format, was widely supported by the majority of chairs that responded. Only one raised concerns about changing from the existing format to the new one. But I think the report offers the flexibility for chairs and committees to adjust the format to whatever suits their needs, really. So it's like the examples I've given in the report there. A scrutiny committee, you'd still have the link as an example to that agenda item and that part of the debate. But from the scrutiny committee, you're going to really want to capture what the recommendations are or the spirit of the debate, and it'll be worth highlighting that in the minutes, just alongside the link to it for everybody to have that full debate where they need to. Other committees such as planning or licensing, there might be more of a statutory need to formally record some of the decisions, given the legal basis that those committees really sit within. So it's not just, it's not a dictating that we're going to just have a minute and a decision and a link to something and that'll be it. It's really giving the flexibility to adjust the format as much as we want, but making use of the technology going forward that we've embedded into all committees to make the minutes easier and more accessible. So just over to the committee for thoughts.
Has there been any communication with Standards Committee Chair?
He's given me his views on why he would like to retain the existing format. a lot of it's around making references to specific parts of legislation, and obviously if they're dealing with some cases with member behaviour, and I want to formally minute that if it went to the ombudsman and things like that. And I think the way the report's reflecting that is the same way that we're looking at planning and licensing committees as an example. If the chair or the committee wants to highlight a certain section, then we have the ability to put that in the minutes and highlight just that bit with the link to the full debate still sat in the background. So in a way, we're offering more information, just accessing it in a different way, and we're pulling out the key points, which will make minutes easier to read in the long run for you, because you're going to pull out those bits of information that are really important, and we can highlight that in those. But that was the main concerns from the standards chair.
Right.
And maybe it might be a longer move for some committees. They might prefer more information, but over time we'll reduce it as they get used to it. But it's flexible in how each committee wants to approach it.
I'm just thinking, in the old days, particularly for standards committee, we had pink paper stuff. Is that sort of does that still exist? This is going back a while. Sorry.
Yeah, it does. It's not on the pink paper anymore, but they do still have. Well, all items can have restricted information, and the bit about the minutes for those particular items is that we're not actually allowed to put a lot of information in the minute for those anyway, because you can't know what the details of that debate are. So we thought about that in how we were going to draft it, but really it's just going to say the committee considered the report on whatever that restricted item
But
was.
those are sort of minutes kept somewhere.
We keep a note sometimes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Members, any comments, or are you quite happy with the way we continue with such?
I mean, are there time links to those points then on the video and stuff like that?
Yeah, they're all timestamped. So the link in the minute is to the start of the time on the video for that agenda, right?
So that's really useful.
Where you need to go.
Yeah.
There's
Sorry, Jill, Councillor Bond. You put your hand up?
Councillor Neil, then Councillor Buckler, then somebody else, I don't know, then Councillor Thomas, then me.
Right. Councillor Neil.
Hi, thanks, Councillor Bond. It's just really to say that I think it's absolutely appropriate that we modernise, we review how we operate moving forward on a pretty much continuous basis, and technology really causes us to do that. Advances that we're making in one area, we should recognise the impact of that in others. That the unnecessary hours that are spent by officers writing minutes at a time where we are absolutely needing to focus on the best use of officers' time seems to me a really compelling aspect of this. You simply can't have the old world and the new world and everything else going with it. We have to sort of be able to move forward. But minutes also have an importance in terms of the record. And whilst recordings are made, I just wanted to understand how long they're kept for, John, to ensure that, if there is a matter of clarity, verification, whatever it might be, that access to recordings is something that can, for how many years and through what period, if you could possibly address that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Neil. If you visit the YouTube channel that we've got for all the committee meetings, they go back to since we started streaming meetings, which was in 2013. So we've got 10 years of videos available online. One thing for me to think about and consider just going forward is how I'm going to store that information locally, just so we've got a contingency in case YouTube went down, YouTube changed their policy, whatever. And we're obviously just going to take up a big amount of storage. If it come to an issue that we had to look at reviewing what we had, we'd look at a 6-year retention policy on the recording, in line with how long we keep agendas and minutes hard copies for. So if we've got a minute or an agenda and information on a meeting, we'll have a recording to back it up. What I didn't mention earlier on, I suppose, as well, was what happens if we had a technology failure. in that instance, we just revert back to writing the old style minutes and having a full written minute of the meeting. That's the only way we can really do it. But to back up the infrastructure that we've got in place, we've got 3 backups of every recording. So we've got one video going to YouTube, and it'll store it on YouTube. We've got the equipment in the council chamber that will record it in the background locally, and we've also can get a Teams recording out of the meeting as well. So we've got 3 versions before we have to get to that point of considering whether we need to write a full minute. And with the way the technology works now, if one of those 3 goes down, the meeting itself probably goes down, like we can see with how many people are online here. So we should never get to a point where we're going to have that problem.
Right, thank you very much. Councillor Buckler. Rachel. Your sound is off, your microphone is off.
Sorry, it's misbehaving. I couldn't get it to release. Very
Okay.
odd.
That's fine.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's good to have a clarity in if people are looking at the minutes, and so to have a brief overview with the chair of each committee being in control of what is considered very important in the committee meetings. I think that's that is good enough scrutiny of the minutes. What I would say is also regarding sort of full council meetings, but sort of the votes that are taken, in what form do they get recorded in the minutes? Because I think it's very important that our residents know how their committees are voting and what their members beliefs are, because I think it's it's important to be transparent about it. So John, if you can sort of explain how that is dealt with, also with full council in mind as well. Thank you.
Yeah, for full council, I think for the clarity in terms of how we do what we do now in terms of the minutes for the votes is, if there is a recorded or roll call vote, the result of that gets put into the minute document. If it's just a vote where it's clearly gone through on a majority, then we will just say that upon being put to the vote, the decision was approved. The way we've done it mirrors the way we had meetings essentially when they were all in person and everyone just showed their hands. So back in those days, we'd all be sat in the council chamber. We put our hands up. We didn't record individual votes. If you were in the room, you could see how those people voted. But other than that, there wouldn't be a way of knowing how members cast their votes. We do have the option to record votes from members, because obviously with it all going through Teams and the polls, we can extract all that information if we needed to. But we haven't gone down that route or taken a decision to do that. And if it's something the committee wanted to consider, then I'd probably suggest we put that on as a future agenda item to debate the pros and cons of that. But we do have the functionality to be able to extract all the votes, record it into the software, and get all that information on the website if that's something that members wanted to go for. But in terms of at the minute and what we do now, if there's a verbal or a recorded vote requested in full council, then the result of that and each individual vote is recorded in the minutes. Otherwise, it's just saying that the decision was approved on being put to the vote.
Are you content with that, Councillor? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, and I think it would be good to bring it up in a future agenda for us to discuss as a committee. To look at it further. But thank you very much, John. That's very comprehensive, and thank you for the information.
Thank you. Councillor Bond, Jill.
I think it's me next, Chair.
Still not me, sorry.
Oh, does it? Okay, all right, go on.
Yeah, I don't know why my name's not coming up. Yeah, Councillor Brown. Yeah, I think I do have some concerns about this. I think because the minutes actually provide an easily accessible record of the meeting, not only for county councillors when you're looking back on meetings, but also for members of the public who wouldn't necessarily have the time to start going through in depth in all the recordings. And I think they do play a useful role. And I'd also like it to include cabinet, because you can call in decisions of cabinet, and you've only said scrutiny meetings and quasi-legal. You haven't said cabinet, and cabinet decisions can be called in. So we need to have a full record of the decisions. And I think that I did try and search for a meeting that I was interested in about 3 years ago on YouTube, and I could not find it for the life of me. I spent ages trying to look through for it. So I don't think technology is necessarily easily accessible for people. And in relation to full council, members might call for a recorded vote. Now, that doesn't seem to be being listed in the minutes. So I don't know how that normally operates on recorded votes, but I think, and also in relation to SAC, that particular committee, that has quite a lot of members from outside the council involved, and I think it's important for there to be a proper record of that, because of the fact not necessarily all of those participating have the time to start watching meetings again and again to find out what the decision making was. So I'm not in favour of this change, and I don't think that the committees listed in the report are wide enough, particularly cabinet and full council. In a sense, we have these recorded votes. What's the point in having recorded votes if somebody's got to spend hours on end going through the tapes to try and find out who voted in what way? It should be easily accessible, and that's the reason why we actually ask for the votes to be recorded.
Thank you for that, Louise. John, I mean, I think you did quite a wide consultation on this, didn't you, with the committee chairs?
We went to all committee chairs. I think just to pick up on a couple of points, like my last comment to Councillor Buckler, if there's a recorded vote in a full council meeting, the result and the individual votes that were cast are recorded in the minute. We had it at the last full council meeting, and there'll all be itemised votes, and the way each councillor voted are recorded in the minutes, as well as that link, so they don't have to go digging around or find that information. For cabinet, we already produce a decision log for. It doesn't have a set of minutes for cabinet. Each meeting of cabinet has a decision log produced at the end of it, which details the decisions the cabinet took. And once that's published, the call-in period can kick in, and they can choose to call that in then. So we're already doing that for cabinet in a way. And just on the point around the meeting from 3 years or so ago, we were in COVID at that point, using different technology to what we're using now. We've embedded the new, since we refurbished the council chamber to allow for remote attendance of meetings, we made sure our live streaming tech is much better, much more reliable, and we've got those contingencies in place, like I mentioned earlier on, around the 3 different backups, which might be why one of those meetings was missing a while ago, but particularly the last 12 to 18 months, it's been reliable, solid going, and it will be going forward as well.
Thank you.
Sorry, could I come back, Chair? Because with regard to the cabinet, you might get a decision that was made, but you don't get. I think the minutes will be useful to give a summary behind what the decision actually was, so that if you're challenging a decision, then it's important to actually know the reasons, because, for example, on a decision that's made, you may or may not accept that depending upon the summary of the reasons that were given. And I also asked about SAC as well. And we've already found from this going 3 years back that the technology can't be relied upon. And, you know, I do think the public accessibility point is also important. So I'm not sure whether John actually answered all of my questions, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Brown, I think for cabinet, it's always been a different situation, hasn't it?
Yeah,
Always. It
yeah.
never has been any different from what it is now.
For cabinet, like I say, it's got each agenda item.
Yeah.
Its purpose, and the last column on the report actually sets out the decisions that cabinet made at that meeting against each agenda item. I'm not sure how much clearer that could be really in terms of the decision log and its purpose. It's there to reflect the decisions that cabinet make and have the reports with the recommendations sat underneath it. For SAC, it's not a meeting that's live streamed anyway. That meeting just isn't one that we do, sort of similar to Sevenside Area Committee. It's not a meeting that we live stream. So in those instances, the format of the minutes will be the old style. If we don't have a recording or a live stream to refer back to, it'll just be a normal standard set of minutes for that.
Okay. Thank you, John. If I can bring in now Jill, Councillor Jill Bond, please. Are you there? If not, I'll move on to Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, I was.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was next.
It was
showing
next.
me as the next one, but not
Yeah,
a
yeah.
problem.
Okay.
Really briefly, I would say that you know, I agree in principle, and I think I said this when I responded to John's sort of troll for thoughts. But obviously, I'm chair of licensing, and I suppose it applies to, obviously does to planning. But with some of those decisions, they are sort of quasi-illegal, and then they might be referred back, you know, to a magistrate's court or whatever, or to a legal forum. And I would feel a little bit unhappy if there weren't standard minutes then to go to, say, a magistrate's court or whatever. But in reality, I think in the round, I think as Councillor Neil said right at the start, we've got to move with technology. Written minutes obviously come from an era when there was no technology to record the meeting, either by sound or you know, with video. And obviously written minutes, they were the true record. So I think it's a time of sort of change and transformation, but it's one that might apply slightly differently depending on the committee. And I would be happy overall, but I say at times when it's something quite controversial, something like licensing or a big planning issue, then written minutes where it's going to be scrutinised by somebody else, and particularly legal people, I'd feel a bit happy with some written minutes, but I wouldn't go overboard about it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, over to you, Councillor Bond.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Chair. So I can see the positives, as people have said already. Resource time reduces unconscious bias, all those things, inconsistencies in interpretation, of course. I've got a question that's similar to Councillor Brown's. Wonder if people with hearing impairment have been consulted, and residents in general, because I noticed on the sustainable development and equality implications, there's no sustainable development or equality impacts, but I think there might be. And I think whether, I don't know how you would get some sort of feedback from residents, but I think some people are less, as Councillor Brown was saying, IT savvy, and might not like that. So I don't know how you would get that feedback from people, but I just think that's a missing chunk, a really important one, because we're here to serve the people of Monmouthshire, obviously. So the impact assessment has not included the people who were reading it. It's not just for ourselves, it's for the residents. You said about you do backups, that's brilliant. I wonder about the capacity we've got and what the cost of that storage is. And obviously there's change in technology, a lot of different companies and organisations going to lose out, but there's any thoughts about the longevity of it, and if there's an outage, which you've said you should cover by the 3 backups. But really, and then can I suggest that if we do agree this today to take it to council, we possibly put forward that we do a 3-month trial and then do a review. Is that what, I don't know whether you've said that already. You recommended 12 months, but I think because it's quite a significant change, I think. Good change if all those other answers are, or that those other things are answered. But I think perhaps sooner rather than later, otherwise we're going to have a whole year of where we've got incomplete information, if that's what people find as the result. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you. Over to you, John.
Yeah,
And then Sue.
good
Yeah.
point. It's an excellent point on the hearing impairment and how we can help those to make sure they're still accessing the information. I hadn't considered it when I was writing the report, I'll be 100% honest, but what we can do with the technology to back everything up is we can extract transcripts that Teams is interpreting of the meeting, so you can have a full transcript of how it's read it, and we can share that with them. When you're watching the videos as well on YouTube, you can switch the subtitles on and it'll put the words on the screen for you as well. So there are those accessibility things there if the need did arise. In terms of longevity and the storage costs, we're doing it on a shoestring, essentially. This other councils have got nicer looking software but are paying hundreds of thousands of pounds a year for it. All our costs are the maintenance contract for making sure the chamber is up and running, ready for meetings, and they'll just be the normal storage costs for service base, which isn't that great, particularly if we're looking at a 6-year retention period or whether things are staying there for longer. So it's not huge, and like I say, we're doing it very cost efficiently. The reason I put a 12-month review in is some meetings only meet quarterly, or 3 monthly. So we might only get one set of minutes, and they might not get a full experience of whether it's the right thing for them or not if we did it at such short notice. But I'd like to think that the way in which we'll be flexible with it and with committees and chairs going forward, that in that 12 months, if they're not comfortable with an element of it, there's still that flexibility to include whatever it is they want in that minute document, to make sure that the committee is happy with what that document looks like and reflects the decisions and actions that they take in.
Okay, thank you. Can I just come back a second then? So you're suggesting in other, sorry, Chair, in other councils they do this already. So I wonder how they consulted, or do they just communicate with their residents that this is happening?
No, I didn't say that.
Oh, sorry, I don't know.
That's okay. Some of the councils have made this change, mostly because they choose to live stream their meetings in different ways, or they might not live stream all their committees. The setup that we've got allows us to cost effectively stream every meeting of the council, which means that we can make this change. Now, other systems other councils have means that it might be a cost per minute of a meeting to them. So they might only choose to say live stream council and planning committees or something along those lines. We don't have that restriction in the way we've designed the system. So because we live stream everything, that's what's allowing us to make this move. But no other council has switched their format of minutes because they don't have that technology in the background at the minute.
Oh, well done you for doing that then. Thank you. So is there any way of consulting or with the residents of Monmouthshire as to their preference? Or we're just going to wait and see what feedback we get as it goes live?
I think what perhaps will be helpful is if when we come to reviewing this in whatever we look at, that we've got examples of both formats out there that we could actually give to them as part of the consultation, and which one do we prefer, and get a real experience from committees and chairs then of, are these minutes doing the job that they need for you, for your committees? And we might have some real life examples of, perhaps like Councillor Thomas said, where something's just not worked and we needed to reflect on that and adjust it. And we'll have some tangible evidence to to have a proper review on then.
Thank you. I'll bring you back in, Councillor Neil, in a moment, but first of all, Sue McConnell, Councillor McConnell, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's been really interesting. As a minute taker of many years standing, this looks to me like a really good idea. Not least, I've handed on the baton to other minute takers in different venues than this, and said you're in a position of future power because the record of the meeting is what you write, and that is where bias can come in, and you have to be selective if you're not going to transcribe every word that's written. So I do think this is positive. It's keeping up with the technology. We can assume that councillors have got access to the technology. You know, will be able to use technology to check the most accurate record you can find, which is a recording of the meeting. And so I think that link is to specific items is a really good idea. I've got one suggestion as we go forward into this, which is that the chairs of meetings at the start of a meeting could say, we are currently going into this new format. So for those watching who wish to look at, check explain the process and how it's being recorded for residents. And they could even say, we'll be reviewing this in a year if you want, to write down your thoughts and your experiences. And the other thing would be that the chair can then explain that if someone has a very strong feeling that something should be recorded in writing, they can say so during the meeting and decide so to do. I think we're sort of saying that anyway. By default, but if someone wants to make a point and they're very strongly of the feeling that they want it recorded in hard copy, they can ask for that, and that can be observed, if you like. And I'm thinking particularly for things like planning, it may be useful for a chair or an officer to say, this is the very specific reason, or this is the item of law which applies, which might be useful to be in that hard copy, but we get cut out when somebody rips their lapels and talks for 10 minutes to no particular end. We just don't have to record it, and I think that's really helpful.
I think just going a step further, it would probably be helpful to actually record it in the front sheet of the agendas that we're making this change.
Yeah.
Just under where
so that people know what the rules,
where the attendance is, and where we're live streaming information is, we can put it and just highlight it in that section as well.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Peter. Councillor Strong.
Quite amused by the thought of cost per minute. I just wonder if it might do some councillors good if we did have cost per minute. You'd have to put up on the screen as they spoke, but that's a fairly flippant point. I think Councillor Bond does make an interesting point about hearing impaired people. I just wondered if it's possible to offer a facility that they could get a transcript if they wanted one, and that would be very expensive to do, but I think the number of requests you get would be absolutely minimal. It'd be a very rare thing to get indeed. I just wonder if we don't want to fall foul of the Equality Act or anything.
Yeah, no. And as I say, the technology's given us a transcription as we're talking now.
It does. All right.
So we can, once the meeting's finished, we can just go on, extract it all out. We'll have to do a bit of tidying up. Yeah, it's not going to be, particularly in this environment where we've got a few of us around the desk and one microphone. The chamber's a lot more accurate. It's one to one essentially.
That's great. That deals with that. But on storage, I think we have to remember that physical storage also has a cost. If you have to hire space, or even if at the end, I assume it goes to Gwent Archives. I mean that's paid for by the 5 authorities together, but it still has to be paid for. And I know they do actually calculate the cost of storage space by the foot, although we don't get, or by the yard, or not by whatever it will be, by the meter nowadays. Though we don't get charged directly for it, but that is a cost there. I mean, just in relation to that, when I mean, I assume our records do end up at Gwent Archives eventually. Is that after 6 years, or is that?
There wasn't any hard rule that we were putting in place to move everything up, but we took the decision before the 22 or 2017 elections. For either the last election or the election before, we took that decision that everything that we've got, because we were running out of filing cabinet space and everything else, they're full. Let's just start from scratch. A new term, put all those into Gwent Archives. Everything's on the internet anyway. We're not going and looking at these files. So we just tidied them up. So they all went up to Gwent Archives at that point, and then we're sort of switching to terms now. Do we pack them up there when the term is finished, or 2 terms? And we're just waiting for that sort of time to come where we look at the cupboard and we think, right, we need to do something with that. But as you say, if we move to this, the minutes that we would have had that might have been 30, 40 pages sometimes for a full council meeting, and now 3 or 4.
Yeah, my house is rapidly filling with minutes.
Just
And again, that kind of defeats the object, because they are all available electronically and online. And the minutes online, I think they go back to at least 2013 as well, possibly even before that. So we've definitely got them before that, offline.
Right, thank you. Thank you. Alistair, you wanted to come back?
Thank you, Chair. It's just a couple of points, and really adding to what colleagues have been saying and what John's been saying, but to remember that we of course need to make sure accessibility is there for people with any disability. But for many years, sight impaired people have not been able to access written minutes. This is, technology comes to the rescue, as John's explained, for those people who may have hearing impairment, that hopefully they'd be able to have the transcript or the words up on the screen as it goes through. So I think that's really helpful. I absolutely understand Councillor Bond's suggestion of a shorter review period, but I think practically it would be necessary to look at doing this for a 12-month period. But scrutiny chairs meet. And I would have thought that, if we were to meet after 3 months and we had some absolutely, screaming problem with this, we would be able to discuss it and feed that back into you, John, and potentially that would be a reason for a sort of force majeure if we needed it in year. It's also just remember that officers' time is not free. So the absolute, vast number of hours that have been taken by officers writing minutes. If you costed it out, it wouldn't surprise me at all if we ended up having the equivalent of one full-time equivalent employee writing minutes all year round. Apart from just the cost of it, what that must do to anybody's brain, I can only imagine. But it's not as if that's for free, and sometimes we do fall into the trap of thinking, what we do within a council, well, it doesn't cost us anything. Of course it does. So yeah, for a number of reasons, as I say, I support.
Thank you. Rachel, will you come back in?
Thank you, Chair. Actually, I'm reiterating really what Councillor Neil has just said. Bearing in mind that the scrutiny chairs will be very clear on the interpretation of the minutes and whether it does give a full and fair picture of the scrutiny committees. It does make sense that they feed back how the new regime is working. But I am reassured by John Pearson's remarks, saying that that the autonomy will be with the scrutiny committees and the chairs. And if things need to change, they can. It's not set in stone. It's not a law that's being passed, is it? But it does use the new technology, and I think it's going to be of benefit personally. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bond, Jill.
Well, most of what I was going to say has just been said. I just wondered, are our servers internal? The only problem I can see is increasing cost of servers space, but that's a problem for another day, hopefully. Thank you. That's it.
Right, thank you. That's really interesting discussion. Sorry, did you want to say something?
Yes, please, yeah. Just really on the transcript part, really. So, I mean, can you guarantee the accuracy of the transcript, or would it mean actually listening to the recording as well?
There'll be a mix. You can extract the transcript, you can look at it, and you can see that some words just might not fit, but they're all timestamped, so it will need tidying up if we do have a request come in for a transcript. You'll have multiple transcripts as well, really, because you can get a transcript out of YouTube and we can get a transcript out of Teams, and we'll need to look at whichever one's going to output the best for us and save us the most time. But it will need some tidying up. And as I say, it'll depend on which room we're in. Like if we're in the chamber with one microphone to one output, it's going to pick that up a lot clearer than it is you saying yes in between me saying a word, as an example, in a room where we've got one microphone.
Right, but it wouldn't necessarily mean an officer having to go through each meeting to listen to each sort of meeting and then make sure they're.
No.
It's only if a request was made.
If a request was made, yeah.
Okay.
Right, I'll just read the recommendations that we approve the changes to the format of minutes and provide consistency across all committees. But first of all, before we actually approve that, Alistair, you've made a suggestion that there should be a 3 months review, and is everybody happy and content with that amongst the chairs when they meet in 3 months' time? Chairs of scrutiny. Could you just show if you're content with that, please?
Hold on. So the review is.
It's going to be with the chairs of scrutiny committees,
Right, okay.
as it has been now.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
Are you all content with
Chair-
that?
Chair, I was just going. I don't mean to disagree with the terminology. I was thinking that it would be an opportunity for feedback.
Yes.
And if there were any enormous problems, we would advise that is changed.
That was my thought. Yeah.
Review any feedback.
Yeah. You're content with that?
Yeah.
Online, in Teams, we're all happy. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, John. Thank you. Right, with that, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 6, members, team, channel and chat bots. Bot.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Chair. At the previous meeting of Democratic Services Committee, we showed you the Teams channel that we'd set up for all members, and the chatbot that we built for you to try and support you out of hours and just again utilizing new technologies to make your lives a bit easier. We did ask we agreed that we put it as a sort of standing item on the agenda going forward, that we can give you an update on how we're progressing with it, how much it's being used, etc. And we agreed to roll it out to members of this committee just so they could see it before we did it more widely. So we did that following the last meeting. Members of this committee should have had the invite to the Teams channel, and it appear in your Teams in your list of Teams. It hasn't been used massively. I'll be honest, and so I think following this meeting we'll look to roll it out to all members just to see if we can get that user engagement and get the feedback that we need from everybody on it. There's some examples in the report there of bits that we've added in since the last meeting, and a lot of it's coming from if I'm getting an email off one of you asking for information. More than likely, more than one of you needs it, and we'll embed it into the chatbot just to make it easier going forward. And we also used it as part of the interviews for the new head of legal position, where we shared some confidential information with you. And I think that worked really well. Everybody was able to access the information that they wanted. So it's another resource that we can utilize going forwards. But again, I don't think we've had much use of it since the previous meeting, so I'm not sure if anyone's got any comments on it, but happy to take it and see if we can do any more with it.
Right, over to you, members. Yes, Peter.
I'm just going to have to admit I don't even know how to access it.
That's fine.
Sorry.
What I'll do, I think, as we're going to roll it out more widely to all members, I'll do more of an introductory email as to where you can access it and what we can do with it.
Okay,
on
be
there.
patient with us. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
I was the one to make it look stupid. It's a number of people.
Any other comments, members, on this?
Sure, Chair,
Yes.
I did try to access it on a few occasions and just put some brief words into it. It wasn't coming up with any suggestions for me. So,
well, what that's doing when you put in something in,
yeah,
it logs it in the background for us, so we monitor what's been entered, and if it's not closing a loop for you, give you an answer, we can go in, find the answer, and put it back in. So the more you use it, the better it'll be. It's going to take a little bit of time, but definitely the more you use it, the better that it'll be in the long run. So my aim with this is by the end of the term and looking to the start of the next term and new councillors coming in, they'll have a really detailed resource that they can use quite easily. And how nice would that have been for you coming in this term? Who's in charge of, who do I speak to about so and so? Bot, and it'll give you the answer straight away. But again, the more you use it, the more we do. So if I share that information better on how to access it and what it can do, and we open it up to everybody, then we can start hopefully getting some real value out of it.
Yeah, excellent. So you're all content with noting the changes and recommend any other areas for inclusion? So, okay, so you're going out worldwide.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, John. Thank you. Then the next item is the key site visits. John, you're going to give us some update on this,
Yeah,
please.
We've been talking about it quite a bit, but I forgot the first time, so I'll apologise for that. And we've been trying to put something in place to arrange a sort of site visits for members to sort of key sites around Monmouthshire, so we can go and actually have a look at everything together. We're having real difficulty getting a bus for you that isn't in school time because all our backup drivers are running the school transport as well. So we would have done it, you know, it would have been at maybe at 8:30 in the morning, meet at Mega, and we'll drive you around, drop you back off about 6 o'clock after we've been to plenty of places. We're just struggling to fit that in. So my request from members is to just get your preference on how you want to deal with it going forward. One option would be that we could do it in school holidays, where we don't have that as an issue. But then the knock-on effect of that is we might have difficulty getting into schools. If you wanted to go and visit a new school or something like that, they're going to be shut. One thing I spoke to the chair about as an option is maybe we break it up into 4 separate days and we divvy the county up into 4 sections. We do an Abergavenny day, a Monmouth day, Chepstow, or 5 days if you wanted to, then Sevenside and Central. I just think I need a steer from you on how you want me to progress that, because I know meetings in school holidays isn't a popular one, so I don't want to put a trip on that no one's going to want to turn up to if we did it in school time. So over to you to let me know how you want me to progress it, really.
Yes, members, what do you think of the idea of splitting it up into areas, or even 2? Could we do it in 2 days, perhaps 9 till 2?
I think,
or would that be too much?
Pushing it a bit.
I think it's pushing it a bit. If we're going to do it, let's try to get as much value out of it, and maybe even dividing it up into 4 areas. We can visit more sites rather than just the main one.
We did this before, didn't we, John? And we had a coach or two, I think, when members first came in, and that was really, really interesting. So if we could do that in 4, from 9 till 2, say, on 4 separate days. Are you, sorry. Rachel, you wanted to talk, sorry.
Thank you. Yes, I think to do several days is a good idea, whether it's 4 or 3. But I would be led by you, John, really. So if you're you and your team are planning it, what's most efficient. But you know, I think we'd all, you know, be keen to see as much as possible to inform us. So yes, definitely a few days. Thanks.
Good, thank you, Rachel.
Sure.
Yes.
Do we know what was done before?
Well, it was a whole council thing. I think this is just for us, really, as a Democratic Services Committee.
No, I think we'll open it up to.
You are going to open it up to
members.
Sorry, I didn't.
All members.
There were 2 coaches we had before, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I think it pretty much followed last time the same route that officers get when they're inducted in the council. So Dawn, from our training centre, she arranges it and takes all new officers as part of their induction out and around the county to get a feel of it. So they went to Dewstow School, Senview Residential Home, Tinton Train Station, Monmouth Leisure Centre, because that was fairly new then when we went up to there, Lamforest Recycling Centre. They came here because this was a new facility then as well. I think how many days we do will depend on it. A discussion I have with Dawn as to how we can maximise the trip in those areas for you and how much we can actually get around. You know, just thinking off the top of my head, in Abergavenny now, if we were up there, it'd be great for you to perhaps go and visit King Henry and the development that's coming
Yes.
on up there, just as an example. So then you've got Landforest Recycling Centre there. So what else can we do in that pocket to maximise it for you? So if you're happy breaking it up over a couple
Yes.
of days, leave it with me. I'll put an itinerary together for those individual pockets
Good.
of what we're going to visit. And then we'll love to get some dates in the diary and
Great.
go from there.
Sooner rather than later, that would be good.
We'll be restricted less by obviously light as well and the timing.
Yes,
of
we
the-
will.
If we were trying to do a full
But
day.
I don't think the time of the year matters particularly, does it really? Only the light issue. Really.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, Peter.
Just try it. I mean, if we can't go everywhere, and we can't go everywhere because Monmouthshire does so much, there's so many different places. To prioritise those where public access is not as easy. So, for example, I would have thought the railway station at Tinton might be lower down the list. Lovely to go to, but any of us can go to that at any time. The new care home would be very high up the list because we don't normally have public access to that. So if we have to include some but knock off others, just think in those terms, I would suggest.
Oh, Peter.
Yeah.
You can't go everywhere. Or you can buy the ice creams at Tinton in the spring.
Okay, right. Okay.
Chair,
Yeah.
Scott and John. So, I mean, it's good to prioritise
Yeah.
sites. I think I agree with that. Would that be other, like I went to St David's on Friday to see what was going on there. It would really, I think it would be really beneficial for the councillors to see what's offered within, that's outside county, but other things like the MenCap Centre in Chepstow. Is that something that would be on a visit or?
We've tried to. I think the extent of how far we go will be when we want to do it, and I think members really want these sooner rather than later. So maybe we'd focus more on key Monmouthshire sites at the minute,
Right.
and if there are other things we can do later on, which allows us a bit more time to get that engagement with those sites in, then we can look at that later on. So I think from now, just to get this going as soon as we can, really, if I liaise with the chair on those pockets and the sites that we're going to visit, and you and myself can agree that, and the dates, and then we'll just get it done as soon as possible, I think.
Okay.
Judah got his hand up.
Judah, sorry, I beg your pardon. Yes.
Yeah, what I would say, you know, apart from debating which sites you go to, and it's very difficult to get that shortlist, but the only thing I'd say, I did go when I joined the council 2017, we had a really good sort of cut through the county, and I think most councillors are often, you know, their knowledge is very much in their ward and area, and it tends to split north and south, and people perhaps who are councillors in the north don't know a huge amount when they start about the south and vice versa. So I think anything we do is beneficial because it sort of informs you then if you're a councillor based in the north, you're debating something in the south, you've got a much better handle, you've actually been down there, you've seen it, you know, etc. So I do think this sort of across the county, wherever we actually go, it's got to be good for councillors, particularly new ones. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Julia. Right. Okay. So some work to do on that then. Thank you. Okay. I'm sorry, Jill.
I just had a thought. I don't know whether I missed it, but if people have been on it before, like Councillor Thomas was just saying, perhaps Councillor Neil as well, they can put forward ideas that they found useful at the time that would help us as newbies, possibly.
I can't remember.
Last people, maybe.
Yeah, I can't remember. Can you, Tudor? It was a long time ago now. It was very interesting. I know that. That's why.
Yeah. No, well, it's about 6 years ago, but I know you were on the same sort of visit. But yeah, obviously we went to some of the sort of key businesses, and we went to some of the schools. Obviously, King Henry development now would be a key one, wouldn't it?
Maybe just have a word. If people have ideas, just sorry, Chair, through you. Sorry. Maybe if people have ideas, just send them to John as to
that's fine.
ideas that they found useful. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that idea. Good. Thank you, John.
We have a wonderful empty car park in Rocket.
Okay. Any other comments for the time being, members? No. Right. And one thing that we did decide that we did talk about today was just complaints and compliments. in some councils, they actually list the complaints and compliments for members to see, and I think it's quite important, really. So perhaps for something for the next agenda, John, if that's okay.
Yep.
Any other items for the next agenda, either now or perhaps you can let John know.
Like, if I may.
Yes, of course.
There was, the colleagues will know we get this magazine, Local Government First,
Yes.
through the post. It can be quite annoying because it's nearly all about England and you're not sure if it relates to Wales or not very often. But there was an article there about the new legislation, well, the article was called Banning Boycotts, and it was legislation that prohibits councils from boycotting different countries or whatever. It's really looking at Israel, and I'm not for a minute suggesting that we do or don't boycott Israel, especially today of all days. But the article was quite interesting in that it did say that it has wider reaching implications. I mean, you know, if you wanted to boycott China or so because of the treatment of the Uyghur Muslims or so on, or maybe even wider than that. I just wonder if somewhere that needs to be discussed and the implications made clear to all councillors. Whether that's for this committee or whether that's for governance and audit, I don't know. But it seemed to me to be something that, unless you've read that article, and even if you have read that article, you won't be fully acquainted with the implications, and councillors could be making proposals that aren't legal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you wanna-
interesting.
I think
Yes.
I'm not in a position to give you an answer on it, but perhaps if we pick it up outside the meeting, we can
Yes.
find who the relevant officer is and do that bit of work
Yeah.
and send it around electronically.
Another thing, perhaps, I've got a thing about defibrillators that people don't know where they are half the time. I don't know if you all know where yours are and where they are, if you're visiting any other part of the county, where they are. So perhaps, although it's on the website, isn't it, where they all are?
Yeah.
I always worry whether the actual emergency services know about the defibrillators. I just get quite concerned about this, the ambulance and fire and all the other services, police. Perhaps it's just me that gets concerned about this, but I mean, some wards have 5 or 6 and some have 3, some have 2, some don't have any.
On the members,
Is it something that you think is important to know where they are as members?
on the members area on the website under the health and safety tab,
They are there.
there's a link to the NHS Direct website,
Okay,
and you can click a link in there that says defibrillator locations, and
right.
they'll bring you up a map, and you can just search Usk, and it'll show you where all the defibrillators are situated
Right.
in Usk and everything.
Okay, thank you for that.
Can I ask then?
Yes, of course.
The list you've got there then, John, are they MCC sponsored or being funded by MCC, or do they include the town council funded
I
ones?
think it includes everything. So if I just put Usk in, we've got Centenary Hall Committee, Usk Community Hub, Jack's Appeal, Three Salmons, South Wales Fire Service, Morgan's of Us.
The other thing is Chepstow and Caldicot Lions. We've also bought a few between Chepstow and Caldicot. So I'm taking it that all those will be listed on there as well. So it's a full spec of defibs.
Look, it looks very detailed to me. I'm guessing it's where they're all registered.
Yeah.
And also, if anybody passes on or whatever, the actual responsibility, who changes the pads and all that sort of thing. I think that needs to be recorded in case you know, there is a problem.
That can be quite.
Sorry about this, members on, can you hear what we're saying? Can, yeah. I'll come into you in a minute, Rachel, just 1 second.
Yeah, we've got quite a few in Usk. And I know the town clerk monitors them all,
Yeah.
and she registers each one with, I'm not too sure who it is actually, I'm trying to look online. But maybe the defib finder, I'm not sure. And they send her a reminder to her every, I think, 2 years for pads and every 5 years for batteries, so that she knows automatically.
I think this is a general thing, but I just wonder something can go wrong and somebody thinks somebody else is doing it, blah, blah, blah.
The defib finder is the website that you get directed to the members area.
Yeah.
Okay, I do apologise for bringing this up as a bit random, but it's something that I've been meaning to talk about. Rachel, yes.
Chair. Actually, we've been delving deeply into defibrillators in the Devorden Community Council and also the Llantrisant Vawr Community Council. What I would say is quite important for residents to know that if you ring emergency services, they will be able to, in an instant, tell you where your nearest defibrillator is, which obviously you'd be ringing in a state where you needed some help. They would it's instant. They come up and they can tell you where the nearest one is. But yes, they're an important resource, aren't they, for our community and visitors to our community. Thank you.
For that, that's good. Right, okay, so we'll look at the date of the next meeting then, members, the 22nd of January. Okay, thank you for coming and thank you online for being there. Get out into the sunshine now if you can. Okay.
Okay, well,
Thanks.
you know,
Yeah, thanks then. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, how you are?
Okay.